You are being detained until we can figure out who your name is. I'm giving you a chance to give me your name.
Right from the opening seconds, the tone is explosive. The officer immediately declares the auditor detained, not because of a crime, but simply because officers want to know his name. This is the moment that hooks the audience instantly. The auditor is calmly standing on a public sidewalk taking photographs, openly exercising his rights. Even the deputies admit something critical. What he's doing isn't illegal. Yet despite acknowledging lawful behavior, the officers shift the narrative toward suspicion. Notice how quickly lawful activity becomes framed as something unusual. The auditor stays composed, hands visible, voice calm, a clear contrast to the growing pressure around him. This intro perfectly sets the stage. A citizen who knows the law and officers attempting to assert authority without clear legal grounds. The tension begins here, and it only escalates.
Investigative journalist gathering content for a story, that's all. There's my hands. Got nothing in my hands, all right?
Why are we taking pictures of the plant?
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Raise a little bit of suspicion.
It's not illegal though, right?
That's not illegal, however, it is suspicious in nature. With it being as, you know, what it is. So, you have a vehicle with you?
I'm not answering any questions. Like I said, I explained to him I'm a journalist gathering content for a story.
You have an ID with you?
And so he's already confirmed I'm not breaking any laws, so.
Well, we're still talking to you. We need to identify who we're talking to.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
We're trying to identify who we're talking to just because it was called out that there was a suspicious person walking around taking photographs. The way things are right now, we at least need to identify who we're speaking to so we can make a notation that you were in the area, who you were, and what you were doing. If you're taking photos, that's fine. But we still need to find out who we're talking to.
Who I am is investigative journalist gathering content for a story.
Okay, I need your name though.
And I'm taking photographs.
So that's perfect.
Unless I'm being detained. Am I being detained?
It's an investigation, so you are being detained.
I am being detained?
You are being detained until we can figure out who your name is. I'm giving you a chance to give me your name. We're conducting an investigation as to what you're doing. Therefore, I'm asking you for your name.
Now the encounter moves into its first real legal clash. Officers repeatedly demand identification, arguing they must document who he is because someone reported a suspicious person. The key moment arrives when the auditor asks the most dangerous question for unlawful policing. Am I being detained? When officers confirm he is detained, the stakes instantly rise. The interaction shifts from a casual conversation into a constitutional confrontation. The auditor strategically forces officers to clarify their authority, exposing the gap between suspicion and reasonable suspicion of crime. Viewers begin to sense what's unfolding. This isn't about safety anymore, it's about control.
What reasonable articulable suspicion do you have that a crime is afoot?
You're in an area taking photographs of a power plant.
Is taking photographs of a power plant a misdemeanor or a felony?
What is that? Sorry?
Is it a misdemeanor or a felony to take pictures?
Right now you're failing to identify who you are while being investigated by a law enforcement officer. That's the crime that you're committing at this point.
What would that be?
Failing to provide identification to a law enforcement officer when you have been asked to do so.
Is that a crime?
Yes. It is a crime.
You have to provide law enforcement with an identification or your name so that when it's been asked upon, you do not do so.
But you've already confirmed that I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm not violating any laws.
Failing to identify yourself at this point.
There's no duty. I'm not refusing. Don't get me wrong. But there's no duty to identify if I'm not suspected of a crime.
Okay.
Here comes the first major turning point. The auditor calmly asks officers to articulate the crime they suspect. Instead of naming one, they pivot, claiming the crime is now failure to identify. This is where the confrontation becomes intellectually intense. The auditor dismantles the logic step by step, pointing out that officers already admitted he wasn't breaking any laws. The audience witnesses a classic audit moment. Authority attempting to create a violation after failing to find one. You can almost feel the pressure building. The officers repeat legal phrases, but struggle to justify the detention itself. The balance of power subtly begins to shift.
Is that right?
We're telling you right now, you're completing an investigation as to what you're doing and what you're photographing.
I've already told you that I'm an investigative
Correct.
journalist gathering content for
However,
story.
along with that, we need to identify, we're asking you that we need to identify who you are so we can make a notation that you were in the area and you're going to be in the area taking photographs. Okay,
Well,
failing to provide law enforcement officer with a form of identification after you have been asked to do so is a crime.
okay, so I'm not refusing. What will happen if I don't give you guys identification? Because I don't think it's any of your business who I am. You've already confirmed that I'm not committing a crime. What I'm doing is perfectly lawful. I'm standing on a public sidewalk. Not only is it, just let me finish. Not only is it perfectly lawful, it's constitutionally protected activity.
Okay.
Did you guys take an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution?
Okay. I'm not asking you whether or not you are going to be taking photographs on the side of the road. That's not what we've already clarified that.
Right.
However, what we're discussing now is the fact that you're failing to provide law enforcement with an actual identification or your name so that we can make a notation that we may contact you. Right?
This is a First Amendment protected right. You guys are detaining me unlawfully. And now you're forcing me to give up my identification, which is unlawful. And I'm going to give you guys a chance not to do that. I'm not refusing to do it, but I'm going to give you guys a chance not to unlawfully detain
We
me.
need to know who we're speaking to.
Are you going to give us your identification or not?
Am I going to be arrested or not if I don't give it
It
to
just
you?
depends. Why are you refusing to give it?
This section is pure courtroom-level debate, except it's happening on a sidewalk. The auditor invokes constitutional protections directly, reminding officers that photography in public is protected activity. He even asks whether they took an oath to defend the Constitution, a moment that dramatically reframes the encounter. Instead of discussing crime, the interaction becomes a discussion about rights versus authority. Watch closely. The officers remain focused on identification paperwork, while the auditor focuses on legality. Two completely different conversations are happening simultaneously. The tension peaks because viewers realize something critical. The detention itself may not hold legal weight.
Because it's none of your business who I am. It's my personal information.
I'm a law enforcement officer. I have the right to find out who I am.
What is y'all's names and badge numbers? Do you have a supervisor?
I do. You want me to come over? Because I'll be more than glad
Please
to come
call your supervisor and we'll take it from there, okay? Now I want to make it clear I don't consent to being detained. I like to be free to go and go about my business.
I understand that.
It's the loitering and prowling is what we were looking at because you're in an area at a time that's not common for normal people to be in photographing.
Like I expressed to Deputy Richardson, I do not consent to being detained. I would like to be free to go as soon as possible.
As soon as we can find out who you are and we can possibly identify who you are, you'll be more than glad to go.
Alright, sir, I'm going to advise you of constitutional rights, okay? You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we ask you any questions, and to have him listen during any question. If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed to you. Before any question, if you wish, if you decide to answer questions without a lawyer present, you'll still have the right to stop answering at any time. You'll also have the right to stop answering at any time until you talk to a lawyer. Do you understand these are those rights advised?
Now, the confrontation reaches emotional intensity. Officers push for a final answer. Will he provide identification or not? The auditor stays firm but controlled. He doesn't yell, doesn't escalate. Instead, he uses precise language, asking whether refusal will lead to arrest. This is strategic brilliance. By forcing officers to state consequences on camera, he places accountability squarely on them. Then comes the decisive move. He requests a supervisor. In police audits, this moment often signals a turning tide when frontline authority meets oversight.
Hi, I'm Sergeant Ford. How are you, sir?
Sergeant Ford.
Nice to meet you.
What's your name, sir?
My name is Jeff. I'm
okay.
investigative journalist. I'm just taking photographs. They've already advised me that that is not illegal.
No, it's not. And no, Jeff, I don't think you're a terrorist. Oh, fine, but if that's all you do is taking pictures.
Okay. Am I free to go?
Outside, Jeff.
I know it is. Am I free to go?
What's that?
Am I free to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What's that?
We didn't know who you were.
Well, you don't want to give us your last name or anything like that, Jeff?
I'd rather not if I'm not doing anything illegal.
He wouldn't even give us his first name. So.
Well, you said it's Jeff. I mean, if it's Jeff, Jeffrey, I don't know.
Okay.
But no, you're not doing anything illegal.
Okay. So I'm free to go?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to head this way if I could just...
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Jeff, you know that were you recording our conversation between the two of us?
I am, yes, sir.
Okay, well, you didn't tell me you were recording that conversation, did you?
No, sir.
Okay, that's illegal under the Florida statutes. You realize that?
Actually, it is not.
It's a Security Communications Act is what it is.
Not when it comes to public officials.
No, I think you're wrong, buddy. Okay, but You need to tell me you're recording me. If I'm talking to you, say, hey, I'm recording this conversation, and I'll be fine with that because you've told me you're recording me, okay?
Okay, am I free to go?
Yeah, you're free to go.
Thank
So
you.
I bring that to you.
The final segment shows the psychological shift in the encounter. After sustained questioning and legal resistance, officers agree to call a supervisor. The auditor clearly states he does not consent to detention and wants to leave, reinforcing his legal position on record. Notice how the energy changes. The confident demands from earlier soften into explanation and justification. Officers begin rationalizing why they stopped him rather than asserting authority outright. This closing moment completes the narrative arc. A citizen peacefully exercising rights, standing firm under pressure, and forcing accountability through knowledge rather than confrontation. The suspense now lies in what happens when higher authority arrives, because the groundwork has already been laid.